Leon Grady glanced at the cracked screen of his datapad, squinting as if sheer willpower might fix the glitch. The blasted thing had been on the fritz since yesterday's encounter with a particularly aggressive sandstorm, one that had the unshakable habit of showing up whenever he'd planned a day off. He tapped the screen again, watching the flicker of corrupted text before muttering, "Great, just great. Can't even get my inventory list right." Behind him, Tiralaya then shifted her weight, arms crossed under matte slate armor that clinked softly with every move. Her long ears twitched slightly, a subtle signal Leon had learned over the past few months meant she was either amused or mildly irritated. Given the context, his third failed attempt at repairing a piece of ancient Earth tech, it was probably a blend of both. "You know," she said in that calm, clipped tone that made her sound like an intergalactic drill sergeant, "the Zyerlian military issued me a datapad last cycle. I haven't once had to threaten it with disassembly." Leon raised a brow. "Are you suggesting my problem is operator error?" He grinned. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, Commander." Her lips twitched. "Hardly, but if you think sarcasm will save you from another week of data loss, you are mistaken." He sighed, then swung his gaze to the horizon where the twin red suns bled into a dusty sky. The world Uxor 9 was a wild place, filled with bubbling mineral vents and the kind of silence that could drown you if you listened too closely. Perfect for a human surveyor with a knack for bad jokes and an even worse sense of timing. "So," Leon said, "how's the intergalactic war effort treating you these days? Last I checked, you were still chasing rogue pirates through nebulae and rewriting the laws of space diplomacy." "Still busy," Tiralaya replied, eyes narrowing slightly. "But field work has its charm. Much more entertaining than endless political debates." Leon chuckled. "Yeah, nothing like getting shot at to brighten your day." She glanced at him, the faintest hint of a smile curving her lips. "You have a peculiar sense of humor for a human." "That's because it's the only defense against this place," he said, gesturing broadly at the barren landscape. "If I had to sit through another conference call about interspecies trade tariffs, I'd start talking to the rocks." He tapped a nearby pebble. "Hey, buddy, what's the GDP of a dust bunny?" The pebble, predictably, did not respond. Tiralaya shook her head, but the corners of her mouth twitched. "You are fortunate the rocks lack the capacity for retaliation." Leon grinned. "Or maybe they're just shy, unlike you, Commander." She tilted her head. "I am not shy." "That's true, more like intimidating. I mean, those ears could probably pick up radio chatter from halfway across the system." He leaned closer and lowered his voice in mock conspiracy. "You ever use them to eavesdrop on the Zyerlian Council meetings?" Her eyes narrowed further. "I might." They shared a brief laugh, the kind that made the endless isolation of their mission feel just a bit less lonely. The silence that followed was comfortable until Leon's gaze drifted to the small cluster of flowers near the base of a jagged rock formation. Tiny blossoms with bioluminescent petals that glowed faintly in the dusk. Something about their soft light stirred a strange warmth inside him. "You know," he began, suddenly uncharacteristically serious, "I never thought I'd find beauty on a world like this." Tiralaya looked at him, one eyebrow raised. He shrugged. "Guess that's what happens when you spend months alone staring at rocks and data sheets. You start noticing things." She studied him, the soft glow of the flowers reflected in her dark eyes. "You surprise me, human." He cleared his throat, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "Well, I'm full of surprises, some good, some questionable. Like that time you tried to fix your communicator with duct tape and chewing gum." "That was a tactical experiment," he said, trying to keep a straight face. "You wouldn't understand." Tiralaya's laughter was a rare, musical thing that echoed softly over the barren landscape. It was one of the few sounds Leon had come to cherish. It was the sound of someone who was so sure of herself she could afford to laugh at a human's absurdity. "Well," she said after a moment, "if you are so confident in your engineering skills, Perhaps you should attempt to repair the oxygen recycler next. Leon made a face. That's definitely above my pay grade. Of course, she said, clearly amused. But failure is not an option. You do not want to be the reason we have to make an emergency evacuation before the survey is complete. He sighed dramatically. Fine, I'll tackle it after dinner. If I survive. The hours passed with the slow rhythm of two beings far from home, but strangely tethered together by circumstance, and increasingly something else. They shared stories about their worlds, her descriptions of starships slicing through nebulas, his accounts of Earth's messy, chaotic humanity. Ever wonder, Leon mused, if there's someone out there who'd laugh at your jokes? Tiralia's gaze flickered, and for a moment her usual armor of composure slipped. Perhaps, though your humor is unique. Leon smirked. Unique can mean good or it can mean dangerously weird. I'm hoping for the former. She glanced at him. You humans have a curious way of expressing affection. Try being stranded light years from Earth. Sarcasm is sometimes the only love language that works. As twilight deepened, Leon pulled a crumpled packet from his pocket and tossed it toward her. If you survive my cooking, you might actually want to marry me. Tiralia caught the packet, a dubious ration bar with the faint aroma of burnt coffee, and raised an eyebrow. Marriage is a significant commitment. He shrugged. So is surviving on recycled air and bad food. She studied him for a long moment, then her lips curled into a smile that made his heart skip. Perhaps, she said softly, we are both making commitments beyond survival. Leon blinked. Wait, was that a proposal or just a metaphor? She laughed, a clear ringing sound that made the stars seem closer. Half joking, she asked, mostly. Tiralia's gaze held as steadily. Then, half seriously, I accept. Leon's mind short-circuited. Wait, what? She nodded. You asked, I said yes. That is how it works in my culture. Leon rubbed his eyes, certain he'd misheard the logic of a civilization light years ahead. You're joking, he said. No, she said, voice calm but resolute. I am not. And just like that, the vast loneliness of space shrank to a single moment filled with possibility, and the awkward realization that a joke might just change everything. Leon sat at the edge of the observation deck, legs dangling over the side as the Valkeeper cruised silently through the void. His mind was a tempest of confusion, disbelief, and, if he was honest, something dangerously close to excitement. He kept replaying the moment Tiralia had said yes to his half-joking proposal, a proposal he had not intended to be taken seriously. Now, it seemed, it was a legal and binding agreement under Zyerlian law. How had he gone from just a human surveyor to fiancé of a galactic commander in less than 24 hours? The answer, apparently, was faster than the speed of bureaucracy. Behind him, Tiralia entered the room with her usual graceful, no-nonsense stride. Her long ears twitched as she caught his expression, which was equal parts stunned and sheepish. Still digesting the implications, she asked, voice calm but with a hint of amusement. Leon sighed dramatically. Implications? Tiralia, I just accidentally signed myself up for a lifetime of awkward interspecies family dinners and ceremonial rituals involving at least 3 kinds of fermented glow-lichen juice. She nodded thoughtfully. Glow-lichen juice is an acquired taste. The first sip is an assault on the senses, but it grows on you. Much like this whole engagement thing, Leon muttered. Tiralia leaned against the wall, her expression softer than usual. You must understand, in Zyerlian culture, marriage is not just a union of 2 individuals. It is a covenant between families, clans, and star systems. It carries weight beyond the personal. Leon rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, I'm getting that loud and clear. I mean, who knew that one offhand joke would result in a diplomatic incident? She tilted her head. You speak of it as if it were a mistake, yet you have not retracted your offer. Well, can you blame me? Retracting a marriage proposal after it's been accepted sounds messy. Besides, I'm still trying to figure out if I actually want to marry you, or if I'm just terrified of what happens if I say no. Tiralaya smirked. Human hesitation is amusing. On Zyro, once an offer is made, it is not easily withdrawn. Leon's eyes widened. You do realize we're not exactly from the same star system, right? I mean, you have long ears and I have a questionable sense of humor. That's a deal-breaker on some planets. She laughed, a clear, ringing sound that made him feel like the only human in the universe who could hear it. Your humor is unique, but it is yours. That is enough for me. Leon blinked. Enough. That's it. You accept me for my terrible jokes and burnt ration bars. Perhaps that is the most human thing about you, she said. Unpredictable, flawed, but earnest. He grinned, feeling the weight of the situation lift just a little. So what happens now? Do we get to plan a wedding or something? Tiralaya's eyes gleamed with a hint of mischief. Indeed. The Valkeeper has facilities for traditional Zyerlian weddings. We shall begin preparations immediately. Leon groaned. Great, because nothing says romance like ceremonial robes and holographic ancestry trees. She raised an eyebrow. You will participate in the ritual of lineage recital. Is that the one where I have to recite a family tree so complex it requires a quantum computer to keep track? He asked. Exactly. It is designed to test the sincerity of your commitment. Leon rubbed his temples. Why do I get the feeling that sincerity is going to cost me at least 3 embarrassing speeches and a dozen awkward toasts? Tiralaya smiled softly. You will have my support. Which is great, because I'm going to need it when I inevitably botch the pronunciation of your family name. Her laughter was a balm. Your attempts at our language are charming. Leon nodded. That's the diplomatic version of please don't hurt me. Over the next several days, Leon was swept into a whirlwind of interstellar bureaucracy and cultural immersion. The Valkeeper's diplomatic quarters transformed into a hive of activity as the Zyerlian delegation prepared for the ceremony. Holographic displays detailed the ancient customs. Robotic servants scurried about, laying out ceremonial robes that looked suspiciously like high-tech bathrobes. Leon was introduced to members of Tiralaya's extended family, stoic warriors with piercing eyes and dry humor that often caught him off guard. Your humor is strange, one grunted, handing Leon a ceremonial cup filled with a thick, luminescent liquid. Thanks, Leon said, taking a tentative sip. Is this what you call glow-lichen juice? They nodded solemnly. He coughed. Tastes like someone fermented a lightning storm. Tiralaya's uncle chuckled quietly. It strengthens the spirit and the liver. Leon raised an eyebrow. I'm betting it doesn't do much for the breath. The days blurred together, punctuated by awkward dress fittings, language lessons, and attempts to master the fish slap dance. A traditional Zyerlian courtship ritual involving elaborate footwork and the strategic flicking of fish at one's partner. Leon was terrible at it. Tiralaya, he said one evening, wiping slippery scales off his armor, I think the fish are mocking me. They are honoring you, she corrected with a smirk. Yeah, mock-honoring me, he muttered. In quiet moments, they shared stories of their worlds. Leon recounted tales of Earth's chaos, coffee shortages, traffic jams, and the baffling human obsession with cat videos. Tiralaya spoke of starship battles, ancient laws etched in starlight, and the weight of command that came with her position. One night, as they floated in the zero-gravity observatory, the galaxy spread before them like a tapestry of lights. Leon asked, Do you ever get scared? Of what this all means? Tiralaya's gaze was steady. Fear is a luxury for those who do not carry the burden of leadership. I carry it quietly. Your humor gives you strength. Leon smiled. Well, if laughter is my weapon, then consider me fully armed. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Then let us face whatever comes next, armed with laughter and a vow. Leon swallowed, the enormity of it all settling over him like the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Half joking, he whispered. Half serious, she replied. And in the vast silence of space, Two souls bound by chance and choice began weaving the first threads of a promise neither had expected, but both would honor. Leon sat rigid in the seat, his palms sweaty against the cold control panel. The Valkeeper hummed softly, its crescent-shaped hull slicing through the black sea of stars. Outside the viewport, twin suns cast a pale glow on the swirl. Leon chuckled. Yeah, I'm starting to see that. The Valkeeper shifted course, docking with a sprawling structure that looked like a giant crystalline web spinning through space. A marriage station orbiting a small blue-green world called Virales. The station buzzed with the muted chatter of diplomats, warriors, and curious onlookers, all gathered for what could only be described as the most unusual union of the century. A human and a Xyrlian commander bound by unexpected vows. Leon tried to keep his expression neutral, but the sight of Tiralia's extended family, stoic figures adorned with ceremonial armor and holding weapons that looked both ancient and futuristic, made his stomach do an embarrassing flip. He imagined his own family back on Earth, probably baffled and asking how he managed to get engaged to an alien with ears longer than most Christmas trees. "Tiralia," he whispered, "are we really doing this?" She met his gaze steadily. "Yes, you made the offer, I accepted. Now it is time to honor it." The ceremony began with the ritual of lineage recital. Holographic trees projected into the air, each branch representing generations of ancestors, with names and achievements swirling in glowing script. Leon was handed a datapad containing his family history, or at least what little the Xyrlian archivists could piece together from Earth's fragmented records. "Don't worry," Tiralia whispered as he stared at the screen. "Pronunciation errors are forgiven, but insincerity is not." Leon took a deep breath and began reciting, stumbling over names that sounded like a mix of ancient languages and sci-fi technobabble. "John Grady, son of Michael, grandson of, wait, is this a great-uncle or a cousin?" Tiralia raised an eyebrow. "That distinction is less important than your willingness to honor them." By the time he finished, the room echoed with polite applause, and Leon felt like he'd run a mental marathon. Tiralia smiled warmly, touching his arm. "See, you survived." "Barely," he muttered. "Next up, the glow-lichen juice ceremony." She nodded solemnly. Leon eyed the glowing cup warily. "If this is anything like last time, I'm going to need a fire extinguisher and a prayer." He took a tentative sip and immediately regretted it. The liquid burned his throat and left a metallic aftertaste. "Tastes like someone bottled a lightning storm." Tiralia laughed softly. "It strengthens bonds and spirits." "Or just makes you question your life choices," Leon added. As the ceremonies continued, Leon found himself caught in a whirlwind of customs, trading ceremonial gifts, performing the fish slap dance, and navigating conversations in a language that made his tongue tie itself in knots. During one awkward moment, Leon accidentally knocked over a display of holographic stars. The entire room blinked in surprise before bursting into laughter, including Tiralia. "Graceful as always," she teased. "I call it unintentional starlight manipulation," he quipped. Between the laughter and mishaps, Leon felt something shift. The strange, alien world seemed less intimidating, and Tiralia's steady presence became an anchor in the swirling chaos. Later in the quiet of their shared quarters, Leon confessed, "You know, I always thought intergalactic politics would be boring. Turns out it's just more complicated than I imagined." Tiralia smiled. "Complicated is the essence of life." He grinned. "Complicated with you feels like home." She reached out, fingers brushing his. "Then we shall build that home together, one awkward dance and glowing juice at a time." Leon laughed. "I'll toast to that, preferably with something less flammable." And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond their window, two unlikely partners took their first true steps toward a future neither had foreseen, bound by more than a joke and a whispered yes. The morning of the ceremony dawned bright and cold aboard the Valkeeper. Leon found himself staring at a mirror-like surface, that reflected a very confused man in ceremonial robes that somehow looked like a mix between a toga and a spacesuit. His attempt at smoothing out the wrinkles was immediately undone by a nervous twitch in his hand. Tiralaya entered the chamber, her expression unreadable but her ears twitching in that way Leon had come to recognize as a mix of anticipation and amusement. "You look authentically human," she said, voice tinged with humor. Leon shot her a mock glare. "Thanks, that's exactly the compliment I was hoping for." She smiled, stepping closer. "Are you prepared?" "For a lifetime of awkward family dinners, unpronounceable toasts and fish-slap dances. I was born ready." Her laugh was soft but genuine. "Then let us proceed." The wedding chamber was a crystalline hall orbiting Virales, bathed in the glow of twin stars. Holographic banners displayed the intertwined symbols of the Xyrelian clans and the Earth Alliance. Guests from dozens of systems had gathered, their varied forms a testament to the diversity of the galaxy. Leon noticed a three-eyed merchant nervously adjusting his robes and a small sentient plant creature, whose leaves shimmered in rhythm with the ceremony music. As the ceremony began, Tiralaya's voice rang clear, reciting ancient vows that bound not just hearts but star systems. Leon struggled to keep up with the complex cadence, his own vows feeling embarrassingly simple by comparison. Midway through, a sudden alarm blared, cutting through the solemnity. The room's light dimmed as red emergency signals flashed. A voice crackled through the station's intercom. "Warning! Unauthorized boarding detected. Hostile forces engaging." Leon's heart sank. "Pirates here now." Tiralaya's eyes narrowed. "It seems our ceremony has attracted unwanted attention." Within moments, the crystalline walls shimmered as force fields activated. Armed figures appeared at the entrance, rogue separatists opposed to the Xyrelian coalition, determined to disrupt the alliance. Leon instinctively reached for the ceremonial dagger at his side, its design elegant but deadly. "Well, I guess this is one way to spice up the wedding." Tiralaya's voice was steady. "Stay close." They moved through the corridors, weaving between blasts of plasma fire and dodging debris as the Valkeeper shook from the boarding attack. Leon's training as a surveyor offered little preparation for space combat, but adrenaline sharpened his reflexes. At one point, he found himself face to face with a robotic assailant, its cold eyes glowing red. With a mix of luck and desperate improvisation, he triggered the espresso machine mounted on his utility belt, which emitted an electromagnetic pulse, momentarily disabling the attacker. "Did not expect a caffeine defense," Tiralaya said, appearing beside him with a smirk. Leon grinned despite the chaos. "Always pack your priorities." Together, they fought their way to the emergency bridge, where the captain coordinated countermeasures. The Xyrelian warriors flanked them, their precision and discipline a stark contrast to Leon's improvisational style. After a tense battle, the pirates were repelled, their ship retreating into the void. The Valkeeper system stabilized and the emergency lights faded. Breathing heavily, Leon looked at Tiralaya. "So much for a quiet honeymoon." She smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "The moment you proposed, I was already yours. This is just the universe's way of welcoming you." Leon laughed softly. "Well, if surviving pirate attacks is part of married life, I'm glad you're on my side." Their hands found each other's, fingers intertwining as the station systems hummed back to normal. The ceremony resumed, now with an added sense of triumph. The vows were spoken with newfound meaning, promises forged not only in tradition but in shared danger. As they exchanged rings, bands forged from stardust and earth steel, Leon whispered, "Guess this is one wedding story that beats all the others." Tiralaya's eyes gleamed, "And one we will tell for light years to come." Amid laughter, applause, and the occasional cheeky comment about Leon's espresso-powered defense tactics, two souls bound themselves together, not just by ceremony, but by trust, courage, and the unexpected twists of a cosmic joke turned promise. Leon blinked as the gravity adjusted back to Earth normal levels, a welcome relief after weeks of zero-G and questionable space cuisine. The small apartment overlooking the city skyline felt both foreign and oddly comforting. Tiralaya sat across from him at the tiny kitchen table, her long ears twitching as she carefully examined a device that looked suspiciously like a human toaster. "So," Leon said, sipping a cup of actual coffee, "you think this toaster thing is worth the fuss?" Tiralaya raised an eyebrow. "Your Earth appliances are puzzling. It appears to convert bread into a warm, crisping substance." "Breakfast technology at its finest," Leon said, grinning. "You're getting the hang of it." She smiled, an expression that, for someone who could command fleets and recite ancient oaths, felt remarkably human. "And how are you adjusting to Earth?" Leon shrugged. "Honestly, it's a mess. Traffic jams, endless paperwork, and the smell of hot dogs everywhere." "Sounds charming," she teased. He laughed. "It is, but you know what? I've learned that home isn't just a place. It's the people you share it with, even if one of them has ears longer than a nebula." Tiralaya reached across the table, taking his hand. "And I have learned that humor and warmth can bridge even the widest gaps in the galaxy." Their days settled into a rhythm of shared discovery, visiting Earth's wonders, navigating cultural quirks, and occasionally driving each other mad with misunderstandings. Tiralaya's attempts at mastering elevators ended with a minor, and thankfully harmless, tumble. Leon's attempts at cooking still set off smoke alarms more often than not. One afternoon, a news holo flashed across their living room, showcasing a headline: "Human and Xyrelian Commander Unite, a symbol of galactic hope." The story highlighted their viral wedding broadcast and how their union had sparked conversations about peace and cooperation across star systems. Leon shook his head. "I never imagined a joke proposal would make me a galactic celebrity." Tiralaya chuckled. "Sometimes the universe has a peculiar sense of humor." He glanced at her, eyes softening. "So what now? After all the ceremonies, battles, and media frenzy, what comes next for us?" She squeezed his hand gently. "We live, we learn, we laugh together." Leon smiled, feeling the weight of their journey settling into something warm and steady. "Guess that means I'm stuck with you." "For all eternity," she replied with mock solemnity. He laughed. "Good, because I can't think of anyone else I'd want by my side when I inevitably mess up the next family dinner." "And I will be there to remind you of every misstep," she said, her eyes twinkling. Leon leaned back, taking a deep breath. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but in this moment here with her, it felt like home. "Half joking," he murmured.